Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video we are going to be making this cute little bunny with a skirt, and you can also follow along skipping the color changes and the little skirt, and you will get a bunny that looks like this. And I've also made her in the plush yarn following this pattern exactly so you can see how it turns out. This is what I consider a no-sew body pattern. So we're going to start by making the arms, then we're going to move on to the legs, work our way up, attach the arms, make the skirt, do the head, and then we will have to sew on the ears, the little bow, and then any little embroidering that you choose to do. For this video, I will be using a number 4 medium weight yarn, a 4.25 millimeter hook, and 12 millimeter safety eyes. This is a crochet along, so I will be doing every stitch with you, and I am also providing a drop down at the top of the screen with the pattern instructions for the first 30 seconds of every row for you to follow along with. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does it help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. Okay, I think that's everything, so grab your yarn and let's get started. Okay, we are going to begin with the arms. And you can start any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making a knot with the loop on the end as if I was making a chain. Insert your hook, grab your yarn, chain 1, and remember that does not count as a stitch, that just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull on that tail if you need to close that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one, and for row 2 we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 8. So single crochet for 1, single crochet for 2, and an increase, 3 and 4, and repeat that again, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8. Row 3, we are just going to do 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 4, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 5, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then on our 8th one, we're going to grab our yarn and pull up and leave those 2 loops on the hook because we're going to change our color to whatever dress color you're making. So let's cut that off. Grab your new color, and we're going to tie our old color and our new color nice and tight, as close to the hook as you can get it, 2 or 3 times. And then we're going to take that new color and we're going to pull it through those 2 loops on our hook to finish off that last stitch of our previous row. And then I like to tuck my ends in, try and keep them out of the way. And now for row 6, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 7, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 8, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we can remove our stitch marker. We're going to add some stuffing, so grab that now and get it ready. And we're just going to take a little tiny amount. We're going to put that down into the bottom of the hand. You want just enough to kind of fill the bottom of the arm, but you don't want it so firm that when you attach it, it sticks straight out. You want it to be able to kind of fall down along the side. And then we're going to reinsert our hook, fold it, and then we're going to go into the next stitch in the front, the last stitch in the back. So it's going to look like this. And then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. So 1, 2, 3. And then tie that off. Leave yourself a little bit of a string for a tail. Even though I don't sew these on, we will be doing something at the end that kind of makes them a little less floppy. And now we'll start our second arm. And you can start any way you prefer, as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making a knot with the loop on the end, as if I was making a chain. Insert your hook, grab your yarn, chain 1, And remember, that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull on that tail if you need to close that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 8. So single crochet for 1, single crochet for 2, and an increase, 3 and 4, and repeat that again, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8. Row 3, we are just going to do 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 4, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 5, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then on our 8th one, we're going to grab our yarn and pull up and leave those 2 loops on the hook because we're going to change our color to whatever dress color you're making. So let's cut that off. Grab your new color, and we're going to tie our old color and our new color nice and tight, as close to the hook as you can get it, 2 or 3 times. And then we're going to take that new color and we're going to pull it through those 2 loops on our hook to finish off that last stitch of our previous row. And then I like to tuck my ends in, try and keep them out of the way. And now for row 6, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 7, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 8, 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we can remove our stitch marker. And we're going to add some stuffing, so grab that now and get it ready. And we're just going to take a little tiny amount. We're going to put that down into the bottom of the hand. You want just enough to kind of fill the bottom of the arm, but you don't want it so firm that when you attach it, it sticks straight out. You want it to be able to kind of fall down along the side. And then we're going to reinsert our hook, fold it, and then we're going to go into the next stitch in the front, the last stitch in the back. So it's going to look like this. And then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. So 1, 2, 3. And then tie that off. Leave yourself a little bit of a string for a tail. Even though I don't sew these on, we will be doing something at the end that kind of makes them a little less floppy. And now we'll do the legs. And again, you can begin any way you prefer, as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be doing a knot with a loop on the end as if I was making a chain. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, chain 1, and remember that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop over top of the tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull that tail if you need to close that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 6 increases, so that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around for a total of 12. So increase 1 and 2, increase 3 and 4, whoops, increase 5 and 6, increase 7 and 8, increase 9 and 10, increase 11 and 12. Row 3, we are going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 4, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 5, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 6, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we are going to slip stitch in that next stitch, tie off, leave yourself a little bit of a tail, because when we join the legs like this, usually there's a hole right here between the legs, so we're going to use this later on to sew them together. Okay, now we are going to do our second leg, and again, you can start any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making my knot with the loop on the end as if I was making a chain. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, and chain 1. And remember, that does not count as a stitch, that's just attaching our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull on your tail to close that hole if you need to. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one, and for row 2 we are going to do 6 increases, so that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around for a total of 12. So increase 1 and 2, increase 3 and 4, increase 5 and 6, increase 7 and 8, increase 9 and 10, and our last increase 11 and 12. Row 3, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 4, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 5, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 6, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, for row 7, we're going to join our legs. So get your leg ready. So what I want to do is in my crocheting hand, I'll have the second leg that I just finished, and then I'm going to put the other leg in my other hand. And what we want to do is we want to insert our hook just underneath where we did our slip knot. So here's our slip knot. I'm going in that hole just underneath the knot. And that's going to be our first single crochet. So row 7, we're going to start by doing 12 single crochets around the first leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then don't worry about what's left over here. We're going to fix that when we sew the legs together. And now we're going to go into our second leg, and we're going to find where our last single crochet was. And we're going to go 1 stitch over, and we're going to do 12 single crochets around the second leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that will be a total of 24 stitches to go around both legs. Now for the next row, you want to make sure you are starting down in this stitch. That is our next stitch, and not over in this stitch. Okay, so for row 8, and I'm going to get my stitch marker back in there, we're going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. And again, make sure you're in that first stitch. 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5. And then repeat that around. 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15. Now as you're crossing over into the next leg, again, sometimes the stitch gets pulled. Make sure you're going in the next stitch. 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, increase, 24 and 25, 26, 27, 28, and our last increase, 29 and 30, and that should bring us right to our next stitch of our next row. So right where our stitch marker ended, right there. And if for some reason you don't have 30, you can cheat and do an increase or a decrease to make sure your last row was 30. Row 9, we are going to do 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then on this last stitch we're going to go in, grab our yarn, pull up, and leave those 2 loops on the hook, because we're going to change to our skirt color. So I'm going to cut that yarn and then grab your new color. Oop. And we're going to tie that new color to our old color nice and tight, as close to the hook as we can get it. And then I'm just tying it 2 or 3 times. And then grab that new color and pull it through those last 2 loops to finish off that last stitch of the previous row. And while we have this at a good stopping point, let's sew up our little hole between the legs as well. So grab your darning needle. What I like to do is put my finger right where that hole is so that I know where I need to go, and I'm just going to come up on the top 2 stitches, and I'm just going to go around and around, working my way down as I go. So I'm just going to go into those 2 stitches right there. Come around, and then I'm going to go into the next 2 stitches down. Maybe. Pull that nice and tight as you're going. And then I'm going to go in that last little set of stitches on the bottom. And then what I like to do is stick my finger there again, and if I can't see any of my skin, then I know I have it nice and closed. There is a bit of a hole here, so what I might do is just kind of grab a piece of that stitch there and that stitch there on either side of that hole, and then that closes that up too. You can do it a few more times if you want to. I'm happy with it as it is, so I'm just going to tie that now nice and close to one of my last stitches I went in. And then I also cut that short just so it's not in my way, but if you can tuck it down in the leg if you want to. And then let's get our hook back in. Now for row 10, we are just going to do 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Now for the next row, if you're making the little skirt, we're going to be going in the back loops. So you'll be going down in the center of your V there and out the back, and that will leave these front loops for us to attach the skirt later on. And then if you're just making the plain bunny without the skirt, you'll just keep continuing on as normal for the next row. So row 11, either in the back loops or regular, we are going to do 30 single crochets all the way around. So I'll be going in the back loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and if you need to check if you're doing it right, you'll see all these little front loops in a line for us to come back to later. So continue on. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oops, I didn't go through the whole stitch there. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 12, 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. All right, we're going to start decreasing now, and if you need to stuff as you go, you're going to want to do that. I don't stuff until I get closer to the end, but in my opinion, it's easier to wait till we at least get up to the neck, because that's when we're going to put the skirt on, and the skirt is a little easier to put on, for me anyways, unstuffed. All right, so for row 13, we're going to do 3 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 24. 1, 2, 3, decrease for 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, decrease for 16, 17, 18, 19, decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. Row 14, 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 15, we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 18. 1, 2, decrease for 3, 4, 5, decrease, for 6, whoopsie, 7, 8, decrease, for 9, 10, 11, decrease, for 12, 13, 14, decrease, for 15, 16, 17, and a decrease for 18. Row 16, 18 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, next row we're going to add the arms, so get those ready. And we are going to start off with 5 single crochets across. And if you're left-handed, you may be doing this row backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you are going to grab one of your arms, and remembering that where your stitch marker is the back and this is the front, you want to have your strings facing towards the front. And we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and through the body. So into the arm, into the next stitch of the body, that's 1, into the arm, into the next stitch of the body, that's 2, into the arm, into the next stitch of the body, that's 3. And then we are going to do 6 single crochets across, and make sure you're in the next stitch and not the last stitch, because it's really easy to go in the same one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're going to grab your other arm, and again you want the strings to the front. So this is the back, this is the front, and we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and through the next stitch of the body. So that's 1, through the arm, through the next stitch of the body, that's 2, through the arm, and the next stitch of the body, that's 3, and then you should have 1 single crochet left, but we're also going to change color. So you're going to go in, grab your yarn, pull up, and leave those 2 loops on your hook. I'm going to cut that off now. Leave yourself a little bit of a string there, because we're going to do the skirt now, and I'm going to take my hook out, and just in case you lose one of these loops while we're doing that, then you could still have enough to hang on to and redo that stitch. So I'm just going to tuck all my little ends into the head. And if you're not doing the skirt and you're just doing the regular bunny, I will put a little timestamp up here so you can jump up and skip watching the skirt part if you want to. So now we need to attach our skirt color to our bunny. You can attach your yarn any way you like or prefer. I like to do my knot with a loop on the end. So I fold my yarn in half. I'll pinch up at the top of that loop, wrap it around my finger, and bring that loop down, around, and through. And then I pinch that loop, and I'm just going to slide this knot up, just so my loop is a little bit bigger than my hook. Now we want to have our bunny upside down because we're going to be crocheting around, and we want our work to be going this way. And instead of starting in the first loop, I'm going to go backwards into the last loop, so that when this comes together, instead of it being staggered like that, it's going to kind of pull it so they're both on the same level. So in that last loop, and then I'm going to attach my yarn onto my hook, pull that through, try and keep the knot on the underside, and then we're just going to chain one, and this is not going to count as a stitch. Oops. Sorry, dropped my guy. So now, starting in this same stitch where we attached our yarn, we're going to do, what was this, 30? 30 increases all the way around. So increase. And I'm sorry, my arms might get in the way here. I'll do my best to keep it where it's easy to see. So that's 1 and 2. Then come across into our next stitch. 3. Oh my goodness, and 4. Increase. 5 and 6. Increase. 7 and 8. Increase. 9 and 10. Oopsie. Increase. 11 and 12. Increase. 13 and 14. Increase. 15 and 16. Increase. 17 and 18. Increase. 19 and 20. Increase. 21 and 22. Increase. 23 and 24. Increase. 25 and 26. Increase. 27 and 28. Increase. 29 and 30. Increase. 31 and 32. Increase. 33 and 34. Increase. 35 and 36. Increase. 37 and 38. Increase. 39 and 40. Increase. 41 and 42. Increase. 43 and 44. Increase. 45 and 46. Increase. 47 and 48. Increase. 49 and 50. increase, 51 and 52, increase, 53 and 54, increase, 55 and 56, increase, 57 and 58, and our last increase, 59 and 60. And then we're just going to go over into our first stitch and slip stitch. Make sure you're going behind the first stitch and not in that chain one that we made. And again, we are going to chain one. And now we are going to do one single crochet, one increase, and repeat that all the way around. So in that same stitch we just slip stitched in, one, increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, increase, 20 and 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24, 25, increase, 26 and 27, 28, increase, oops, arm, 29 and 30, 31, increase, 32 and 33, 34, increase, 35 and 36, 37, increase, 38 and 39, 40, increase, 41 and 42, 43, increase, 44 and 45, 46, increase, 47 and 48, 49, increase, 50 and 51, 52, increase, 53 and 54, 55, increase, 56 and 57, 58, increase, 59 and 60, 61, increase, 62 and 63, 64, increase, 65 and 66, 67, increase, 68 and 69, 70, increase, 71 and 72, 73, increase, 74 and 75, 76, increase, 77 and 78, 79, increase, 80 and 81, 82, increase, 83 and 84, 85, increase, 86 and 87, 88, and our last increase, 89 and 90. I think my count is right, but if it's off, don't worry about it. As long as you did one single crochet and one increase all the way around. Then we're just going to tie that off and leave ourselves a bit of a tail to put on the inside, which we might as well also do right now. So I'm just going to thread my tail end on. And don't worry about how it's flipping around right now. It's easier not to worry about it until you get it all stuffed and finished, and then just kind of go around and fix it up. So I'm just going on the underside of the skirt till I get to that row where I did my front loops and my back loops, and I'm actually just going to tie my attaching yarn tail to my tail that I just made at the end. Remember, we're on the underside. And then I'm going to thread that on. Oh, sorry about that. And then I'm just going to tuck these ends inside somewhere right close. So I'm going to have to do it in 2 steps here. This one is really short. So maybe when I get into editing, I'll make a note to leave a longer tail there so that you can do them both at the same time when you get here. And then I'm just going to pull that so that that little knot there can come to the inside. And then just give those a trim. Okay, so let's get our hook back in. So let's just be careful pulling all our strings out here, because we don't want to wreck our loops. And if you do happen, let's just pretend I wrecked my loop. Oops, that came out. So I'm just going to insert my hook in the stitch before. Grab my yarn and then just make a little. So I have my 2 little loops there. And now we can tie our new color back on. So nice and tight, as close to the hook as you can get it. Two or 3 times. And then tuck them inside. And then pull that new color through those 2 loops to finish off the rest of that stitch. Okay, so for row 18, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 24. So 1, 2, increase, 3, and 4, and repeat that around. 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8, and as you're going around, when you get to your arm strings, make sure you don't go over them, because we're going to want them on the outside for later. 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, increase, 15 and 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, and our last increase, 23 and 24. Row 19, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 30. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, increase, 24 and 25, 26, 27, 28, and our last increase, 29 and 30. Row 20, we are going to do 4 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, increase, 29 and 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and our last increase, 35 and 36. Row 21, we are going to do 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 22, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 23, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 24, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 25, we are going to do 4 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a decrease, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a decrease, for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and a decrease for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and a decrease for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and a decrease for 30. All right, let's put our eyes in now. So I'm just going to take my hook out for a minute. So we're going to flatten our little guy out, and I'm using my arms to kind of figure out my center, my legs and my arms, and then just flatten out the head, and then get your eyes ready. And then you're going to grab your darning needle or a pin. And our eyes are going to go on between rows 23 and 24. So that's going to be 2 rows down from where we are right now. So this is our first row, our second row, and then right here between our third and our second row. And just place it in the row for now. And then you're going to just have a double check. Find your center. And I'm pretty close. I'm just going to use my legs and center my arms. And I think maybe this way. So I'm going to be going in a stitch. So I'm going to have a hole on each side of my pin. I think I might have to go one over this way yet. Yeah. So I'm still in a stitch. One hole on each side of my pin. And I'm going to take my eye and I'm going to count over 4. So 1 right beside my pin, 2, 3, and then 4 into that 4th hole. And same thing on the other side, the hole right beside my pin, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in that 4th hole. And then we're just going to have a double check now that they're in, if they're in the center, and I think they're okay where they are. So if you're happy with it where they are, grab your backs and put those on. And then let's get our hook. Oh no. Let's stuff him now a little bit. So I don't have no stuffing in. So some of you might already be ahead of me here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly and evenly just start on each side of the leg. So I'm putting a little bit in one side and then about the same amount in the other side. And then I'm going to grab a little bit more and do the same thing again. I just split it in half evenly and then go on one side. And be careful not to overstuff. I've been doing a little too much stuffing lately, I think. So once you have those kind of on the firmer side, you're going to just start going into the belly. And again, don't worry about how this is sitting. We'll fix that at the end. We're going to be smushing it around a bit and moving it, so it's going to get messed up anyway. So when you're happy with the shape of the body, I might put a little bit more in. Now we only have, I think about 4 rows left. So you can put some in the head if you want. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit in. It's hard for me to stay in the camera view if I have too much stuffing in. And I'm just going to add more when I get closer to the last row. All right, let's get our hook back in. And for row 26, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 24. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4. Actually, I'm going to take my stuffing out. It's just going to be in my way. Repeat that. 5, 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, and a decrease for 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. Row 27, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. So 1, 2, and a decrease for 3, 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease for 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12, 13, 14, decrease for 15, 16, 17, and a decrease for 18. So we only have 2 rows left. If you need to put your stuffing in, I'll put that little bit in, and then I'm gonna do the rest in the next row. So row 28, we're gonna do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 12. So 1 decrease for 2, 3, decrease for 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, decrease for 10, 11, and a decrease for 12. All right, let's add whatever stuffing we have left to add. And try not to stretch your stitches as you're putting this last bit in. I will show you a little trick at the end when we're closing at the top with no hair. So if your stitches are stretched, we can kind of fix them a little bit. We do want this on the firmer side. Not super firm, but just enough that you can get that squish when we try and shape the face a bit in the eyes. So I'm putting my fingers down in the center, pulling out, kind of making like a well. And then I'm just going to stick a little bit down into that center. And that's pretty close. I think that's pretty good. So see, I did stretch my stitches a little bit, not too bad. If I was doing a darker color with white stuffing, it would not look as good. And now for row 29, we are just going to do 6 decreases. So 1 decrease, 2 decreases, 3 decreases, 4 decreases, 5 decreases, 6 decreases. And then we're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch and tie off. Leave yourself a bit of a tail for closing up this hole, and maybe leave yourself quite a bit if you need to fix your stitches, and then we'll have lots there because we're going to go around in a spiral with our yarn after we close. So let's take our stitch marker out. Just double check if you need to add more stuffing. Okay, so let's, excuse me, grab our darning needle. And we're going to thread our tail on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to weave in and out of these top loops of these stitches. And if you're using the plush yarn and you find it breaks on you really easily, try doing half, pulling it, and then doing the other half and pulling the rest closed. I find that puts a little less stress on your yarn, and it won't break as easily. All right, so I am going to tie one little knot in the next stitch. And then I'm just going to show you a little start, and then I'm going to fast forward the rest of it while I go around and finish off. So what you want to do is find where your spirals end. So I'm going to start right here. Sometimes it's a little tricky to see it. I'm going to start by going underneath. I did my other bunny, and I think I forgot to pull that knot inside, so I noticed when I sewed the ears on, you can kind of see a bit of a raised area. And we're just going to go underneath through all our stitches backwards. So I'm catching the tops of the V's, and I'm trying to make sure I don't see my string. So if I'm going to see my string here, I'll go under and then through that V. And I think I need to go this way. The first round is a touch tricky, and then it gets a little easier. Or for me, the way my stitches fell, it is anyway, I find. Come on. One decrease is tight, I guess. And then so you're just going to follow that all the way around. I'm going to continue on and then fast forward it, and I'll meet you when I'm done. Okay, so I've just gone around about 3 rows, and I just kind of made it so I'm ending in the back side. And then you can tie a knot here if you want. I didn't on my other bunny, but I think I might regret that, so I am going to tie one little knot here. And then hide that down inside. So now you can see there's a big difference here at the opening. You can't see all those holes that we had before. And then we're just going to cut that off. Whoopies. And then let's do the arm threads as well. So for the arms, you're just going to grab one of your strings, and it doesn't matter which one because we do them both exactly the same. And what you're going to do is find where your knot is and your last stitch where you attached your arm. So right there, you see that knot right there? And we're going to go in the last hole that stitch went in. And then we're going to come out the back center of the neck somewhere in a hole. Then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Thread that on. Find where your last arm stitch was. So mine is right here. There's my knot. So I'm going to go down right here in that hole and come out the same place that my other string came out of. Now you're going to want to keep track of these strings, which one goes to which arm. You're going to give them one tie loosely, wrap them around the neck, turn your little guy around, and now you're going to pull these, and these little knots are going to go inside, and your arms are going to come forward a little bit. So just like that. Just pull however much you want. Usually I have them come quite a bit forward because it will relax a little bit. And then we'll just tie that a couple more times to secure them. And rethread our ends on and put them down and throughout the body somewhere. And we'll give those a cut. Don't forget, hang on to your scraps because sometimes they come in handy for the other parts that we're going to do. So now let's do the face. So this, I'm going to just use a scrap that I just cut off from closing up my head. So you want a color that matches your bunny's face. And when I did the plush one, I used regular acrylic yarn because we're going to be pulling this tight and I didn't want it to break. So what you're going to do is you're going to go in the center somewhere between the eyes. You're going to come out on the inside center of that same row. Leave a little bit of thread for tying. Now we're going to wrap it around this eye. You may have to lift it with your nail or something. And then we're going to come, so we went in here, we're going to come one row down, go into that hole on the bottom inside of the eye, and we're going to find the matching spot on the other side. And now we're going to go around this eye. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. And then now we're going to match this stitch. We're going to come one row up, go into this inside center stitch, and come out where we started. Now we're going to give these one tie. And you're going to push down and together and tighten as you go. And that's just going to help so you don't break your thread. And you kind of can keep track of where they're going. You just don't want them too close or they will look a little cross-eyed. Your main goal here is to get a bit of a bump between the eyes to kind of make a bit of a nose shape, I guess, for the face. And sink the eyes down. Then we'll thread those back on and hide the ends out the back somewhere. And you may have to come back to the front and fix your face if it left a little hole. So see, I have a little hole here where I pulled that all through. I'm just going to kind of move the stitches around and just close that hole up. All right, now we're going to do the nose. So grab a little scrap of pink or whatever color you're using. And we're going to go 2 rows down from where we inserted our eyes. So here's our eye row, 1, 2, and then just kind of pick. So I think I'm going to make mine about 4 stitches wide. So I'm going to come down 1 row and come up where I want my nose to start. No, 1 more. Leave a little bit of thread for tying, and then you want to come across and go into about the matching stitch on the other side. So you can just hold it and kind of see My other noses I made a little smaller, and then when I did the plush one, I made it a little wider, so I'm just, in the video, I'm going to do wider noses. But of course, you can make your nose any size you want. And I'm just going to go around 3 times, kind of stacking my yarn on top of each other. So just like this, I'm just wrapping it around so it kind of looks like you have 3 rows there. And when I get my 3rd one, I'm going to come out where I started. Sorry, I'll move my fingers in a second here. I just don't want that nose to move around too much. All right, and if you're happy with it, actually that one's going to come a little bit more. Then you're just going to give it a tie, kind of loosely so you don't pull your stitches in your nose, and then tighten it a little bit on the next one. And then we're going to thread those in to the body somewhere, or the head. And I'm just going to kind of watch to make sure that I don't pull that too tight. So once it's through, I just grab my ends out. I'm going to fix that stitch that I made a hole in. Just kind of fix my nose. If you kind of go under the stitches, you can just kind of go like this and just kind of pull them out a bit to make them more even. Then I'm going to lightly cut this. And I got to swoop that end in because I can still see it. So I'm just going to go in beside and swoop down across to get rid of that end. Okay, now we are going to embroider the little mouth on and eyebrows. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have any embroidery thread handy, I'm just splitting my yarn into the 4 strands, and then I'm just going to pull one out, and that's what I'm going to be using as my embroidery thread. So let's get that on our darning needle. And I want my mouth to kind of be on either side of the nose. So I'm going to come on and 1 row down. So I'm going to come down 1 more row, and I'm going to come out to 1 corner. Pull a little bit, just leave enough of a thread for tying on the other end. And then just kind of go over and see where it matches up. So I'm going to come over here, and then I'm going to come out underneath the nose. So you may have to pull that up a little bit. You don't want to see this when it's when you're finished. So up under the nose, right in the middle, and then we are going to come straight down like that, just kind of underneath the mouth, and then out where we started. You might have to pull it a little bit just to get it where you want it. It's a bit of a short one, I guess. I think I got a frayed piece of yarn there. Okay, and then you are just going to give that 1 tie. Nice and loose. And then 1 a little tighter. And then we'll thread that out the back or the side or wherever you choose. Sometimes I do the side for this one just because I don't want to pull it too hard. So maybe I will do the side this time. So back in and then out somewhere. Pull that gently because you don't want to wreck your mouth you just made. And then give that a light cut. And then if you can still see your end, we'll swoop that in with our needle. Just have a double check on your mouth. That's pretty cute. And then let's do some little eyebrows. So again, I'm just taking a piece of my yarn that I separated. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up 2 rows from the eyes. So I'm going to count this as 1, 2. And just on the inside of the eye, we're going to go across, matching on both sides. And then we're going to pull about half of our yarn through. So we have enough on each side to make our eyebrows. And then I'm just going to go from this top row, so I'm 1 row down, and I'm going to go to the outside of the eye, count that as my first hole, and then go in that second hole, and then come out somewhere near the center. And you want to pull these gently so you're not pulling your eyebrows too much. And then we're going to thread onto the other side. And same thing. So we're going to go 1 row down, our first hole, our second hole, and then come out in the same spot that we just brought the other thread through. And of course you can put your eyebrows anywhere you want, make them longer or shorter or straighter. My main goal is just to make sure they're even. So if you happen to have one look a little longer than the other, you can, so if this one looked a little longer, you can pull that a little tighter and it will shorten it up a bit. And then we're going to give them a light tie and then tighter. And we'll thread those through the head somewhere. So I'm just going to pull that lightly. I'm just going to watch. As soon as that's through, I'm going to gently pull the rest of my threads out. Fix that stitch. And then lightly cut that end. Come back and give it the swoop to get rid of it. And there we got our little face. Oh, he's going to turn out so cute. Okay, now we're going to do the ears. And again, you can start any way you prefer, as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making a knot with a loop on the end as if I was making a chain. Grab my hook, pull up, chain 1, and remember that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull that tail to close that hole if you need to. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 9. So 1, increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9. Row 3, 2 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 12. So 1, 2, increase, 3 and 4, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12. Row 4, 3 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that around for a total of 15. 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15. Row 5, 15 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Row 6, 15 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Row 7, 3 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that around for a total of 12. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12. Row 8, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 9, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 10, 2 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that around for a total of 9. 1, 2, decrease for 3, 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease for 9. Row 11, 9 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Row 12, 9 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we can take our stitch marker out and we're going to fold it in half, and we are going to do 2 decreases across. So we're going to start in the next stitch and then go to the back and that last stitch. And then there's 1 decrease and 2 decreases. And I'm just catching this last little tiny piece on the end, and that's 2. And then tie that off, leaving yourself enough of a tail to tie that on or sew that on. And now we'll do our second ear. And again, you can start any way you prefer, as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making a knot with a loop on the end as if I was making a chain. Grab my hook, pull up, chain 1, and remember that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull that tail to close that hole if you need to. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one, and for row 2 we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 9. So 1 increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9. Row 3, 2 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 12. So 1, 2, increase, 3 and 4, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12. Row 4, 3 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that around for a total of 15. 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15. Row 5, 15 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Row 6, 15 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Row 7, 3 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that around for a total of 12. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12. Row 8, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 9, 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 10, 2 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that around for a total of 9. 1, 2, decrease for 3, 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease for 9. Row 11, 9 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Row 12, 9 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we can take our stitch marker out and we're going to fold it in half, and we are going to do 2 decreases across. So we're going to start in the next stitch and then go to the back and that last stitch. And then there's 1 decrease and 2 decreases. And I'm just catching this last little tiny piece on the end. And that's 2. And then tie that off, leaving yourself enough of a tail to tie that on or sew that on. All right, let's sew our ears on now. So we are going to grab our darning needle and thread one of our ears on. And we're going to be attaching them from the center back on each side. So it is a little bit tricky because we ended at the top. So what I'm going to do is just kind of, here's my very center. So I'm just going to kind of go on each side of this row and on each side of this row so they're kind of even and kind of just above the arms. So I want to kind of be in the middle. I think I'm going to come up 1 stitch here. Nope. I got to put a bow on there, so I got to be careful. So I'm right even with the center of my closing stitch. And then we're going to go through the first stitch we made to close our ear. And now we're going to come down. So I started on this one. We're going to come down to the other side of that row and go around the stitch there. And those are the 2 stitches we're going to be using. So now I'm going in my other stitch that I used to close. Go back down in that same hole. And because we don't want these to be floppy, we're going to go up 1 row and go back this way. So I'm going to go up. So this is where I first was going in. So I'm going to go up above this row. I'm going to put 2 stitches on the top and go in the same hole on the bottom. And pull these nice and tight so you don't see that line of stitching. So now I'm going to going over one more stitch in the ear, put the same stitch of the head. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to go in these 2 stitches and then this stitch on this side of the row. So I'm going up 1 row now again. So I was going in this stitch, now I'm going in this one. And then the 2 outside stitches on the other side. So again, down and around the head stitch. And then up into the last stitch. And I might just go around that side twice, just so it's a little more secure. And then I'm going to tie it in the back. So 2 stitches on the bottom, 4 on the top, and then tie it in the back. Nice and close to the head, somewhere on the bottom. I want that to be fairly tight, and that will hold your ear in place. And then go down inside, right close to where you tied that knot. And then just come out in the center somewhere. Pull that knot in. And then we're going to thread on our other ear. And now we just kind of want to line it up so we're kind of even. And what I did was I used the inside of my eyes. So that ear kind of ends right where the inside of my eye is. So I want my other one to line up like that too. So it should be okay right here. Just make sure they're also even this way. And last time I sewed this accidentally, I'm just going to wrap that over in that arm to keep it out of my way. So I've gone around my 1 stitch. Now I'm going to go in my first stitch of my ear. I'm going to go down a row and around that stitch through the last stitch in my ear. And then just have a look, see if they seem like they're even to you. I think they're okay. So now again, we're going to come in this stitch twice and in each stitch up here once. So around the head, up a row into the ear, into that same stitch on the head, over a stitch and into the ear. Now we're switching to the stitch on the other side of the row. Maybe. Oh, there we go. In the next stitch up on the ear, in that same stitch around the head, and then in the last stitch. I might just go up a tiny little bit to catch, make sure you catch enough of that to bring it in and down. And I went around that one twice, so I'm going to go around it twice again on this side. And then tie it in the back. Get that nice and tight. And then down into the head and out where your other thread came. And then we're going to tie those two together. You can give them a pull if you want your ears to stand a little straighter. Mine are pretty good, I think, as they are. So I'm just going to tighten that now and thread it out the back somewhere. And I'll give that a cut. Okay, and then we need to give the little bow so grab whatever color you're going to be using for the bow. Leave yourself a bit of a tail. I'm only going to be tying mine on, but you might want to add a couple stitches to keep it straight. And then however you start a chain, I'll be making a knot with a loop on the end. That's a little big, but it'll work. Insert your hook, and you're going to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then row 1, in this second chain from the hook, we're going to do 6 single crochets across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're going to chain 1 and turn, and now starting in this stitch right here, you're going to do 6 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then catch that last stitch, 6, and then we're just going to tie that off. Again, leave yourself a bit of a tail. And now we're going to thread those ends into the middle. So get one of your ends, decide which side you want the back to be. I don't think it really matters, but I'm going to go with the side. My knot's more on this side than the other side, so I'm going to make that my back so we don't see that knot as much. And what we're going to do is we're just going to come in and we're going to bring it over to the middle. So down and then through these few stitches, just like you were weaving an end in. You should have about 3 stitches on each side, but somehow I end up in the middle of a stitch. So see, I came up through the middle of that stitch. And then we are going to do the same thing for the other side. So get your other end on. Make sure you're on the right side. And again, you're just going to come down a bit, go through your stitches till you meet the other piece. And when you're pulling these, give them enough of a pull to bring the knot or the edges off, but make sure that they're still at a point. You don't want them to be scrunched in, because these are going to be the points of your bow. So now I'm going to give it one tie. just to secure that, so when I wrap around, I'm not wrecking my corners. So that was a really loose one. And then I'm going to tie it a little tighter, and maybe one more time. And then that way, it's still like a little rectangle with the pointy ends. And now take one of your strings. I just take whichever one is the longest. And we're just going to wrap that around the center. So make sure you're even on both sides as you're doing this. And pull that as you wrap it. It's going to be looking like this. Whoop, oh my goodness. Hope that wasn't all the way out. Sorry. So you're just going to wrap around, I don't know, four to 6 times, whatever makes you feel like you got it. And then you're going to retie those ends. To secure that little divot in your bow. And then now let's sew that on. So I'm going to just grab again my longest end. Maybe pull that up a bit. And all I'm going to do is go around either these 2 stitches or these 2 stitches. But since I got a big hole here, I'm going to use those 2 stitches. And then we won't see that. And then I'm just going to tie it in the back. Just make sure you're tying the right way so that it doesn't flip funny on you. And you can, if you want to secure it a little better, you can like just come in and hit each side of this if you want. But I'm just leaving it as it is. So I'm just going to put these ends in the head now. I'm just down in one of the holes that my stitch was in, and now at the back. And then we'll give that a cut. Oh, I wasn't going to make a girl because I didn't know about making the skirt, but I'm glad I did. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this kind of flip back and forth. Your stitches will kind of flow a little bit, like you kind of get a feel for where it wants to bend. It might be a little tricky in the back, depending on how you did the front. If you wanted to, you could put a little pom-pom tail there. Yeah, see, mine is, there we go. Cute, okay. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed making this little bunny with me, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, comments, and shares are always appreciated. And I'd also like to give a big thank you to all of you that have been so kind to have hit the thanks button and send me such generous donations. You will now be listed at the end of all my next videos as my super thanks friends. And as always, take care, be safe, and happy crocheting.